welcome to another episode of Bat Dan's Thoughts. So, I just talked about Barbies, now let's talk about a bomb. Oppenheimer, by Christopher Nolan. Now, any movie that Christopher Nolan directs, you know I have to talk about. One of my all-time favorite directors. So this movie is essentially the telling in a life of Dr. J.R. Oppenheimer. Particularly his involvement in the creation of the atomic bomb. The father of the atomic bomb. And overall, I thought this was a pretty interesting movie. I'll be honest, I'm not normally into history movies, and I'm not normally into all the sciencey stuff that gets involved. But when Christopher Nolan is attached to it, I'm going to see it. To be honest, I really enjoyed this film. This is not normally the kind of film I would enjoy, but with Christopher Nolan, I really did enjoy this film. Very compelling visuals, very great acting, and just really interesting how they explain all the sciencey stuff. And again, I say sciencey stuff because I'm gonna be honest, I'm not really a science person or a math person, so I'm gonna mostly refer to this as sciencey and mathy stuff, because I'm not gonna try and get something wrong and have people in the comment section laughing at me. So anyways, Cillian Murphy as Dr. Oppenheimer. Really interesting, because I'm so used to him as playing another type of doctor. But anyways, Cillian Murphy does a really good job of portraying the kind of the arrogance that Dr. Oppenheimer had. Is that in this film, he's a good theorist, but he cannot do labs to save his life. But despite that, he's still a little arrogant. He's still not taking Strauss's offer right away. He wants to really expand the quantum physics in the US. He did a really good job portraying that. And then when the bomb goes off and Japan gets bombed, the guilt that Cillian Murphy demonstrates with his facial expressions, it's so very good. Very well. You can see how conflicted he is. On one hand, he's doing his duty as a scientist. He's doing his duty to his country. But he still helped create a device that killed people. Thousands of people. Any person doing that would feel bad, would feel upset, would feel remorse. And Cillian Murphy really demonstrates that so well in this film. And then Robert Downey Jr. as Louis Strauss. That was another great performance. I'm so used to this guy as Iron Man, as this good hero. So seeing him play this douchebag, it was a very interesting change. And Robert Downey Jr. really gets into this role really well. And it was really great seeing him play another character in this movie. And it was really interesting seeing the process of how the bomb was created, the way they go through all the science, the way they go through all the math, the sciencey and the mathy, as I said I would refer to it earlier. But it's really interesting seeing how that was all conveyed, seeing Oppenheimer and students that he's taking under his wing, other scientists, working on the math together. It was so very interesting. And then seeing, again, Oppenheimer being full of himself, thinking that it's not possible to split the atoms, and then seeing that happen in a lab, you really saw the limitations of Oppenheimer. It was very interesting. Seeing how all that stuff really fits together. And then it was interesting just seeing how the politics were at the time, how big people were, how concerned people were about communists at this time, and the political parties of the left wing and the right wing. A little bit kind of like today, I argue. But anyways, but seeing seeing how all that was then. That was just, again, it was so interesting kind of learning all about that stuff. And the visuals. I gotta talk about the visuals. When that bomb goes off and that explosion happens with all the light, the fire and light that goes off, and just you see it, no sound for a moment, and then all of a sudden, boom, the bomb goes off very loud, which, by the way, both times I saw it in IMAX, so I really recommend seeing this movie in IMAX because you really get the full experience with this movie. Seeing the moral dilemmas, the ethical questions that is raised in this movie, who's responsible for the bomb, the lengths people will go to serve their country. It was all just a very interesting dynamic, and seeing how essentially the country, how America will prop you up when you're useful, but will instantly shut you down when you're not useful. And seeing Oppenheimer go through that really just kind of shows the sad reality of life, because again, this is based on true events. Some moments fictionalized, sure, but in general, this is a true story. And seeing Oppenheimer with Einstein, I really loved Albert Einstein, I should clarify. Those scenes together are some of my favorite scenes. So many great things really involved in this movie. Some stuff that got a little confusing, like not telling the story in a linear order, that got a little confusing where we were at times. And then the black and white scenes and the color scenes. So apparently, black and white are objective scenes, color scenes are subjective scenes. That was a little confusing. I didn't quite get that the first time I saw it, but then when I saw it the second time, knowing that Christopher Nolan said that, I was like, okay, yeah, I see where he's going with that. I see what he's saying with that. It was still a little confusing at times, and it did drag on a little bit for me in certain moments. And it was a 3-hour film. It's a really long film. I know some other people didn't feel the time. I did at a certain point. So yeah, there were some things that didn't quite do it for me in that regard. But overall, it's a really good film, and it's really hard to go into without the spoilers, but you really have to see it yourself. And seeing some of the bittersweet things that happened to Oppenheimer, because I read a little bit about Oppenheimer in real life, and seeing certain things don't get resolved for him until 4 years before he actually dies, which is kind of sad, but that's the reality of life. But overall, it was a really great film, and just seeing how all the stuff came together, all the ethical stuff it laid, and the way Christopher Nolan portrays the emotion that Oppenheimer hearing and seeing the bomb go off in his mind. Overall, it was a really great film. I really enjoyed it, and I would give this film a 9.10264 out of 10. Again, because some stuff were a little confusing, and it did go on a little bit. It'd be a masterpiece, but still, a really good movie. Another really good movie by Christopher Nolan that shows why Christopher Nolan still has it. So what do you think? Do you agree with what I said? Comment in the comment section. Let me know. And if you like this video, please like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you never miss another episode. And lastly, have a bat-tastic day.